Hello again, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us for this Sunday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy, meteorologist with the National Weather Service. Up on the hazardous weather graphic, we still have for this evening, winter weather advisory out St. Lawrence Island, Bering Strait coast. That'll be ending later tonight or later this evening as snow begins to diminish out in that area. Otherwise, until then, snow and blowing snow, reduced visibilities at times, and maybe a couple of more inches falling. Now the red zones here, those are winter storm warnings for the on the Lotto Hills there, eastern Norton Sound, also for the Kobuk Valley and on out across the Noatak Valley, not including the Selawik Valley today, where the watch was out for yesterday at Kotzebue. Looking for anywhere from 4 to 8 inches of snow with or actually 6 to 9 inches of snow here in this zone here on the south slopes of the, especially up toward the Brooks Range, where you could possibly see as much as 11 inches. This warning out through tonight and until about 3 p.m. tomorrow afternoon. The warning down here looking for 2 to 4 inches, maybe as much as 8 inches falling. And that's out through tonight and into till 6 p.m. tomorrow evening there. So through Monday, tonight and Monday here for these warning areas. Moving on to satellite imagery, you can see lots of moisture, big band of clouds here at the front moving east-northeast, spreading the snow into the western interior from the Bering Sea. Then you get into a break here, look like some clearing there for the Pribilofs. Then more snow showers and thicker clouds rolling in behind that with a little bit colder air aloft. Otherwise, we had a dry band of clouds, really not much, it wasn't much of a precipitation producer at all, except back up here in Canada. But this portion right through here, just mid and high level clouds, although Sitka did have ceilings down to about 4,500 feet, and that's about it. Could be some shower activity back in here with these clouds. Otherwise, clearing following that in behind here, and variable clouds over the eastern interior today with maybe a few flurries or snow showers, but the heavier precipitation back here associated with this system coming across the Bering Sea there. And the St. Lawrence Island area, you see moisture flowing northeastward there, and the front dragging back across the eastern Aleutians. On the chart today, roughly the front here early to mid-afternoon about this position, and again coming down to near the eastern Aleutians there behind the front clearing and lighter winds. But areas of snow and blowing snow, again, those winter weather advisories, visibility is greatly reduced, as they say here, through those areas. Kind of a mixed rain and snow or mixed precipitation pattern developing here, Bristol Bay, on up into the Kuskokwim Delta. But again, precipitation cuts off, but there are lingering snow showers far to the north here, and also back out to the west with more cloudiness. And then you can see the warm front associated with the next system that will be pushing eastward tomorrow, or I'm sorry, for tonight, into the western Aleutians here with an increase in the winds, gale force winds, rain and snow pushing back into the far western Bering Sea and Aleutians. This front drives inland, northward with the couple of low centers now back, one just off the west coast, another one over the Russian Far East. Snow and blowing snow again, mainly this evening for St. Lawrence Island, and then tonight, all night long here up over the northwest interior. And then that'll be gradually pushing eastward here and across Bristol Bay. Otherwise, fair eastern interior, south central Alaska areas. A few clouds around Kodiak, but basically dry. And then you could end up with a few showers here off the Prince of Wales Island coast associated with this trough. Again, most of the action will be over in Canada, and even that's not very much at all. 1,033 millibar high building right back in behind that system, and that's going to keep the eastern part of the state relatively dry. Then tomorrow that weakening front hits the Alaska Range and then goes to pieces here. So just probably will be a band of snow coming across south central Alaska, Cook Inlet, Madanuska-Sitna Valley early tomorrow, followed by some clearing with less precipitation in the afternoon and evening. Pretty unsettled up here to the northwest. Again, the winter storm warnings out in those areas and advisories through tomorrow, most of the day tomorrow. Low lifting off the Arctic coast there, snow spreading eastward to the eastern Beaufort Sea coast. A break here along the west coast now, another ridge of high pressure moving on through, but still some scattered snow showers there for Norton Sound and the west central interior, but dry here for the Alaska Peninsula. Next front bringing rain and snow into the Aleutians, and then for the day on Tuesday, that drives inland. Looks like a pretty good, maybe even a more widespread area of snow with this one making its way into the central interior and south central Alaska than the one coming in tomorrow or the one yesterday and last night had. So this could be a little bit better snow producer than the previous two. Warmer conditions, so rain mixed with snow changes to just plain rain here for all of the Aleutians. Showers up to the north there with widespread snow over the northern Bering Sea, Seward Peninsula pushing up into across the Northtack Valley. Mostly dry here over the eastern interior, as well as the Panhandle, although starting to close in with some clouds and showers on both ends. Low temperatures for tonight running 5 to 15 to maybe as low as 20 degrees below zero over the eastern interior. Still mostly clear skies. A shade below zero on the eastern Arctic coast. And then milder 20s here out to the west with temperatures near 30 for the Pribilofs. And the highs tomorrow afternoon, 10 to 15 here, eastern interior to lower 20s over the Tanana Valley and into the lower to mid 30s over the southwest interior. And up to 20 there for the central Arctic coast, and then cooler to the east, warmer to the west, highs in the lower to mid 40s there for the central eastern Aleutians. And looking at lows for Tuesday morning, not quite as low as forecast for tomorrow morning, but still a little below zero here for the Copper River Basin, Northway and Tok, Arctic Village, right near zero for Fort Yukon, Chalk-Yitzhak, and Eagle, and 0 to 5 above for the lows for the Arctic coast. Otherwise, lows in the mid to upper 20s for the southwest, mid to upper 30s for the Aleutians and Pribilofs, and still pretty chilly there for the Panhandle, teens and 20s. Highs for the afternoon into the mid to upper 30s for the southeast coast there. Teens to lower to mid 20s to the Copper River Basin, teens up to the north here, and milder lower to mid 30s to the south with pushing near 50 there for Unalaska, otherwise lower to mid 40s.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
A lot of IFR out here to the west, moving eastward early tomorrow morning, right up to and just past the Alaska Range, into the western interior, right up there to the south slopes of the Brooks Range, across the Yukon Flats. Better down here, a little bit over the 40-mile country of IFR, otherwise VFR, Tanana Valley on down to the Gulf of Alaska, and breaking out high pressure behind that system to VFR, and then IFR further to the west, VFR across the southeast coast. And for tomorrow afternoon, you'll see that next front pushes a band of IFR to about this area here, out in the middle of nowhere, really, and IFR from roughly Adak over to about Unalaska Island, marginal VFR over the remainder of the Bering Sea. Breaking up the IFR here in the west, but still areas of some fairly widespread areas, Bristol Bay and along and south of the Brooks Range on down into the southeast interior. Improving, though, over south central Alaska, that front weakening as it pushes eastward, and so improving in the afternoon. And then for the next day, for Tuesday morning, get a lot of IFR now up north of the Alaska Range from the border here all the way back out toward the Bering Strait, back down along the southwest coast here and inland, Bristol Bay, trailing back out across the Alaska Peninsula and the Aleutians. And again, it stays VFR over the southeast coast into Tuesday morning and through Wednesday, VFR, all of the southeast coast. Maybe marginal stuff slipping on into Elfin Cove there from Yakutat and the Gulf of Alaska. Otherwise, Cook Inlet, especially western Cook Inlet over to the Alaska Range up into the Susitna Valley, looks like a pretty good chance of IFR and widespread IFR again out from the Alaska Peninsula, eastern Aleutians, all the way up to the Brooks Range, VFR for the North Slope, and IFR for the central and western Aleutians. Passes Anatuvik, lowest conditions, IFR southern approaches of both Anatuvik and Adigan, otherwise marginal VFR, possible VFR onto the north. Lake Clark and Merrill, IFR pretty likely tomorrow, especially early on the western entrance, otherwise marginal VFR. Rainy, just call it IFR tomorrow the entire day, and then for windy, VFR trending toward IFR as that moisture pushes eastward in the late afternoon. And Isabel, not quite as bad, that front really washing out as it pushes east. So VFR maybe becoming marginal. And Mentasta, though, you won't have any marginal VFR in that area till probably tomorrow evening, if it gets there at all. And then for Tanita, VFR trending down toward IFR during the day, and for Portage, VFR becoming marginal. Chilcoot and White, as I mentioned, another VFR day. Looking at icing here, we've got, again, that one band pushing eastward here. Kenai Peninsula, areas of light rime icing possible. A little bit better chance up here to the north, above about 4,000 feet. Another batch out there across the Seward Peninsula from the Yukon Delta, up across the Noatak Valley, actually into the Kobuk Valley. And then another area out here to the west with the front pushing eastward here, coming into the western Aleutians to Adak. And then more stuff out there of the mixed variety for Shemya. Jet stream showing basically high pressure right through here coming in. Behind that front and system will be pushing through tomorrow, and kind of a split flow out here, but a good 130, 150 knot jet there pushing that next system eastward. And for 9,000 feet, we've got good southwest flow here, as high as 85 knots here over the southwest Bering down into the western Aleutians, and then dropping off as it blows northeastward here, 25 to 30 knots northeast Bering Sea on into the Bering Strait, and about 30 knots, 20 to 30 here over the southwest interior, northwesterlies 25, Kachemak Bay, Kodiak, and then just west-southwest 10 to 15, Panhandle, Gulf of Alaska, eastern interior. And at 3,000 feet, pretty light winds here, southeast interior 5 knots, high pressure into Canada, light winds there as well as the Panhandle, northwesterlies 20 to 25 there across Kodiak Island, back into the Kachemak Bay area, ridging right up across the Alaska Peninsula. Then the winds dramatically increase here, 25 to 40 knots pushing in toward the Pribilofs, and 50 to 55 out over the western Aleutians and southwest Bering. Turbulence-wise, with those winds advancing eastward, here will be moderate turbulence all the way over to about Nikolsky, and Pribilofs moderate up there over the western Brooks Range. And after the break, I'll be back with the marine forecasts.
At the Geophysical Institute, scientists monitor earthquake data from several hundred seismic sensing stations across Alaska. When a seismic disturbance occurs, this data is instantly transmitted to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration's West Coast and Alaska Tsunami Warning Center in Palmer, Alaska. Scientists on 24-hour call quickly analyze that data, along with data from their own network of sensors, and decide whether or not they should issue a tsunami warning.
When we see a large earthquake has occurred and it's occurred near the coast, we'll issue a warning to those who could be affected by the wave within a certain amount of time. And then we'll monitor the wave to see if it really was dangerous or not, and if it was dangerous, then we'll expand the warning to all the people that it may be dangerous for.
You can improve warning systems. You do that a number of ways. One of the most obvious is by providing better hardware to measure earthquakes more accurately, but also to measure directly the tsunami itself.
As part of the DART project, Deep Ocean Assessment and Reporting of Tsunamis, NOAA has developed a system of 6 ocean buoys which help measure a potential tsunami. Attached to the buoys are pressure sensors on the ocean bottom that can detect tsunamis passing overhead. The sensors instantly beam the data via satellite to NOAA's tsunami warning centers in Palmer and Ewa Beach, Hawaii.
I work with the state seismologists and other seismologists in our Alaska Earthquake Information Center to generate the hypothetical earthquake scenarios.
These what-if scenarios are used to produce very practical products. One of them is called an inundation map.
Inundation maps are critical to defining evacuation zones and routes so that coastal communities can respond quickly in the event of a tsunami. These deceptively simple maps show the highest point of flooding by a potential tsunami. but a mind-numbing amount of data is needed to generate them. It is only with the advent of the supercomputer that researchers finally had the tool they needed to take tsunami research to the next level. In the mid-1990s, Alaska Sea Grant funded a research project by University of Alaska Fairbanks scientists Zygmunt Kowalik and Elena Suleimani. They worked with the Arctic Region Supercomputing Center at UAF to create a model of an event that occurred over 120 years ago.
The first effort to test a tsunami model was to model the 1883 wave that was generated by the eruption of St. Augustine volcano, that is an island volcano in Cook Inlet.
When the volcano erupted, part of the mountain crashed into the sea and generated a wave that raced across Cook Inlet and partially flooded the village of English Bay. A logbook kept by the Alaska Commercial Company Trading Post at English Bay documents the sudden inundation.
On this morning at 8:15 o'clock, 4 tidal waves flowed with a westerly current, one following the other at the rate of 30 miles per hour, the sea rising 20 feet above the usual level.
Kowalik and Suleimani's analysis of that event resulted in a computer model that has been refined and is now used to create inundation maps for Alaska coastal towns. This supercomputer animation shows how several tsunamis inundated the U.S. Navy base in Kodiak after the 1964 earthquake. The red area indicates maximum inundation. Projections like this are used to create inundation maps.
The goal of our work in inundation mapping is to make coastal Alaska a safer place to live. And I think our major goal is to save lives.
Some shrewd detective work helped the researchers refine their computer model. Geologist and tsunami expert Dr. Gary Carver collected geological clues and considered eyewitness accounts to work up an accurate picture of what actually happened when the tsunamis hit Kodiak in 1964.
In this area, the wave came up this bay, and we have here some of the very best information concerning how large the 1964 wave was. This is also an area where we modeled the wave as a way of calibrating the modeling exercise. And what we found is that in this particular case, the modeled wave departed somewhat from what we know to be the actual area that the wave covered. But in reality, we know from the sand deposits and from the eyewitness accounts that the wave ran back into the trees, into the vicinity of those many houses and buildings back there. And so here's a place where we were able to use the geologic evidence and the historic evidence to calibrate the model.
If we get a big tsunami in this community, similar to what the University of Alaska Fairbanks researchers have told us, this waterfront will be gone. Our goal is to protect community residents and do the best we can to protect infrastructure. And by knowing where the wave may come, based on the information from the scientists, we've got a much better chance of preparing the community for dealing with that. But we've also tried to really educate the community that there are some instances that could cause a tsunami, and the sirens may not go off because we may not have gotten word that from the Tsunami Warning Center in Palmer that in fact a tsunami is on its way, and that would be one that would be locally generated by a local earthquake. And what we tell people is if they have trouble standing up for 15 seconds or the earthquake lasts for longer than 30 seconds, they should evacuate. They shouldn't wait for the siren to go off.
To help people in towns like Kodiak understand the threat and prepare for the next tsunamis, the NOAA National Weather Service runs an information program in partnership with the Alaska Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Management called the Tsunami Ready Program.
Seward, Alaska was designated as the first tsunami-ready community within the state. The Alaska Division of Emergency Services and the city government got together via the fire chief and assistant city manager and worked to bring us into uniform plan for evacuation and informational distribution to all of the citizens within the area.
This is a test of the emergency siren system.
This is only a test.
It means that we can get the word out to the people. We have all of the warning systems in place. We receive the information and we can pass that on to the people in town and be able to get them into an area of safety in case of tsunamis.
For the sourdough Alaskans who survived the ocean's fury in 1964, a real-life nightmare is burned into their memories. They know what tsunamis can do. But most of us were not here back then, when the black waves of March tore into our shores and swept away more than 100 souls. We would do well to learn from the experience of our fellow Alaskans. Because as the scientists assure us, it is not a question of if, but when the next tsunami will strike our coastline.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Looking at today's sea ice analysis. Not a lot of change from yesterday here. Southerly winds will erode it back a little bit here with system coming in, a couple of systems, one coming through today, and then the one coming in from the west later on tomorrow and on Tuesday. And then later in the week, some really cold northerly flow will take place, mostly over the central and western Bering Sea. So this will melt back a little bit, but not all that much. And then for the coastal water forecast tomorrow, pretty light winds out along the outer coastline here, just south-southeast 10 knots, and south 10 for Clarence Strait. Picking it up as you head north, Stevens Passage, for example, north of 20. Small craft advisories for northern Lynn Canal with gusts to 40 knots. And then those drop off on Tuesday, coming down to north at 10, just barely a breeze there for Tuesday. And Stevens Passage, northeast at 15, and still southeast, light winds, Clarence Strait, light winds here along the south coast, out of the southeast at 10, picking up to 20 knots, and then 15 knots out of the east farther to the north. Prince William Sound, northeast winds 10 knots, same thing here for the North Gulf Coast. Out of the Barren Islands, though, Kachemak Bay, hold on to the small craft advisory northwesterlies there, 7-foot seas, but only 4 feet for the Barrens, and 10 knots for Cook Inlet for the winds. Those pick up to 15 knots south of the Foreland on Tuesday, staying light northern Cook Inlet, and kind of a change in the winds here, losing the northwest winds going southeast to 15 for Kachemak Bay, southwest 15 Barren Islands, and east-northeast, really light, 10 knots still from the North Gulf Coast, and Prince William Sound, also light, 10-knot winds, probably just variable at 10, and seas 2 feet. For Kodiak Island tomorrow, northwesterlies 20 knots, few higher gusts, but nothing too significant, 4-foot seas, and that goes all the way down to Castle Cape. Castle Cape to Cape Sarachev, we've got west-northwesterlies at 15, coming across the Alaska Peninsula with 8-foot seas, and Bristol Bay, a little more wind there, northwest at 20. And then those turn southwest at 25, so small craft advisories here For Bristol Bay, all of the Alaska Peninsula, 25 to 30 knot winds there with 14-foot seas on the Bering Sea side. Southwest 25 blowing right up to southwest Kodiak Island. Otherwise west-southwest to 20 there for the Kodiak Island zones and Chillicothe Strait. Out in the Aleutians, storm warnings coming into the picture later tonight and through tomorrow here for the western Aleutians with the next pretty potent front coming in, pushing in. And that'll also extend up into the southwest Bering Sea with winds coming up to 40 knots there. Kiska Island working over toward Amchitka, and then 30-knot winds here for Adak and Atka, possibly hitting gale force late tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow evening for Adak, but small craft advisories everywhere else here with those seas running 9 to 11 feet. And for the eastern Aleutians, on Tuesday, west-southwest, 30 to 35 knots, seas running 11 to 17 feet, and 30 to 35 knot southwest winds for Adak and Atka with seas 13 to 16 feet. Gale force winds, minimum gales, all the way out to Shimmy and Attu with seas 16 to 18 feet. And for the southwest coast tomorrow, southwesterlies 20 knots, seas running 7 to 9 feet, and south 30 knots for both the Pribilofs, St. Matthew Island seas rising to 17 feet. First going to advisories for St. Lawrence Island, where southwesterlies will blow 25 knots. And then the outlook for Tuesday, small craft advisories here along the southwest coast, continuing for the Pribilofs, where they'll be up to 30 knots with seas running 17 to 22 feet out here and winds dropping off to 20 knots for St. Lawrence Island from the south. Eastern Beaufort Sea coast tomorrow, southeast at 10, pretty light there. South 15, central coast down the west side, and then right around 20 knots, Cape Beaufort all the way down to Wales from the west-southwest. And then the next day, they'll swing around to the east at 20 knots here from Wales to Cape Thompson to Cape Beaufort, northeast 15. North of Cape Beaufort, we've got west at 15, getting a little squirrely here for the central and east side. South to southeast to southwest, only at 10 knots. Light variable winds with all the way over to demarcation point. For tonight, again, winter storm warnings continue. No attack, Kobuk Valleys, totals through tomorrow afternoon could be 4 to 8 inches, maybe even as high as 11 inches, the western Brooks Range. Front pushing snow into the Kuskokwim Valley, Bristol Bay, and tomorrow that'll come across south central Alaska, but really weaken as it comes across the Alaska Range. Next system coming in out to the west there. On Tuesday drives a better chance of more widespread, a little heavier snow into the southern Alaska back to the northwest. Have a great evening.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.